Okay? All right. Can I have a big hand for Margaret Metcalfe?
Half a day, everyone. Thank you so very much for being here this morning. This is a true honor, and I would like to have a shout out to all of our veterans in the room, please. If you would make yourself be known. We are blessed with the best of the best. I would also like to give a special shout out to my cousin, Vera Garces, who is here as an AAPI business owner for California, and a young lady that aspires to be one of us, and that is those women, when we get up in the morning and put our feet on the ground, the devil says, uh-oh, she's up, okay? In the spirit of full disclosure, I am the senior Republican National Committee woman for the U.S. territory of Guam. My primary objective is to get our president over the finish line in 2020. Thank you. Again, my name is Margaret Metcalfe. I am Chamorro. I am from Guam. And growing up there, coming here, I'm a graduate of USF, San Francisco, the Jesuits, with degrees. Thank you. Degrees in accounting and economics. While here, I met my loose and fancy dancing young man, Chris Metcalfe, San Jose State graduate. His family settled this valley before the gold rush. You can tell us because we're wearing our lucky leis. I know that sounds risque, but these were the leis we wore on the floor of the Republican National Committee Convention in 2016, and it means a lot, but thank you. Over the last 45 years, we have been fortunate to call Saratoga, California, Tamuning, Guam, and most recently, over the last 4 years, Alexandria, Virginia, home. Through most of our adult lives, we have worked in business, banking, real estate development, and we're quite content. Our kids were healthy. That's what we all pray for. However, we reached a point where we started having a hopeless feeling that the path our government, our state, and our lawmakers were taking us down was something that was not what we had envisioned for our children and our grandchildren. We realized we had to do something different, and we had to make a difference. We chose to embark on a unique adventure. Together, we stepped out of our comfort zone, and we jumped into the political arena. My husband was truly the wind beneath my wings. And Jan has asked me quite graciously to share some of those experiences with you. Upon retiring 6 years ago, I chose to run for Congress in Guam against a 14-year Democrat incumbent. I was fortunate in a short campaign of 5 months to secure a 43% percentage of the vote. Because I fared so well, and because...
Hold it close because they can't hear you.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? No, okay. Because of my strong performance in our local elections and my platform, the Republican GOP of Guam nominated me to be the Republican National Committee woman in D.C. And following that, the governor of Guam, a Republican, enlisted me to be his director of his Washington, D.C. office and his liaison to the executive branch. Due to this, I was able to work face-to-face on a regular basis with the Obama administration as well as the Trump administration. Now, governors are a part of the executive branch. They deal directly with the president and his cabinet members. Because Guam is so remote, I sat in my governor's place because it saved him a 20,000-mile round trip and 44 hours in the air just to do his business in D.C. Adding the North Korean threat to the mix forced me to be more directly involved 24/7, literally. Our president never sleeps. And I don't think that there's another person in Washington sharing my role who had that type of involvement. Additionally, I represented my governor and worked closely with the National Governors Association, Republican Governors Association, and Western States Governors Associations. My offices in D.C. were right smack dab outside of the Capitol building. On 2 occasions coming to work, I was stopped in our nation's capital by the Capitol Police asking me to take my red purse and put it inside my coat. When I asked them why, they said, "We cannot protect you." Verbatim, "We cannot protect you." This is in our nation's capital. Now, in all fairness, my husband is keeping my feet to the fire. He insists that I show you my purse. And I challenge each and every one of you. You need to have some chutzpah to carry this around Washington, D.C. I sat on the RNC's Rules Committee, Republican Conservative Forum, and served as a host for the 2016 Republican Convention in Cleveland. There I sat on the Arrangements and Platform Committee. I helped draft the platform for the official platform for the RNC that our then candidate Trump adopted as his own. He literally adopted at the convention the RNC's platform, listening to every single state. I was named a member to the President's Campaign Committee on American, Asian, and Pacific Islanders. This was an advisory council formed to assist with the election. In less than 30 days, we were the only demographic that delivered a double-digit increase to the polls in votes. This is the fastest growing demographic in our entire nation. And California is the #1 recipient of this vast growth. Today, there are over 1,200,000 AAPI-owned businesses, women-owned businesses in the nation. Over 650,000 of them are here in California. Okay? This is something we all need to know because we need to reach out to our business owners. I agreed to go to Washington because it became so apparent that our citizens and many of our lawmakers in D.C. had no clue as to who we were, where we were, or how important Guam is to the balance of peace and power in the Western Pacific. We are the largest of the Marianas Islands and one of the first inhabited islands in the Pacific. My ancestors go back 4,000 years. That's with DNA testing, everyone. In 1898, I have no pictures. In 1898, during the Spanish-American War, the U.S. took Guam from Spain and made us a U.S. territory. One of those first Marines on that island was my grandfather, John Francis MacDonald, a Scotsman from Boston, Massachusetts. He wrote home to his family and said, "Don't expect me back. I found paradise." He and my grandmother had 11 children. My mother was number 5. Our territory has been there for 120 years as your defense on your most western border. Of our nation's 5 island territories, we are the most remote. We are 6,000 miles from here, 10,000 miles from D.C. We are American citizens. We are American soil. We fly the American flag, practice American laws, have U.S. judges, attorneys, banks, trade in U.S. dollars. We are the only island territory where English is the first language. Thank you. We are the only U.S. soil that has fallen to the enemy since 1812. My families sacrificed their lives and their loved ones as Japanese prisoners for over 3 years during World War II. Yet we rank number 1 per capita in our nation in the recruitment of our armed services in every branch. Okay? Thank you. One out of every 8 adults on my island is a U.S. veteran. We have 27 veteran organizations on our island. We are the size of San Jose with the population of Sunnyvale. 27 veteran organizations. Okay? Doug Mack, a U.S. historian and author, the author of this book, wrote that when our empire, American empire, chose their territories, they did not choose these pieces of land just to have more property and more people in their map. They chose us for a reason, because of our strategic location and our ability to enhance the protection and national security of our nation. My husband is showing you we call this the yellow dot map. How's that? This is a compressed version of the world. In that yellow circle, more people live in that circle than the rest of the world combined. The only U.S. territory in that circle is Guam. We are America's face in Asia. We are 3 hours from Manila, from Japan, from Taiwan. We're 4 hours from Hong Kong. This is a place where we have our airport, our international airport, for as small as we are, between our low and high season, ranks between 4th and 8th in the nation in international travel. That's how many people from Asia come through us to here. We are the gateway. 62% of everything that we create here in the United States goes to that circle. Right now, the Middle East is imploding. Europe is looking at the European Union cracking in places. Investors from all over the world go to this region. And the only reason why is because of our Donald Trump. Chris? Okay. This is another one. Oops, I don't know if this works, Chris. Oh, there it is. I don't know if this... Anyway, you can see the yellow square. We put the yellow square on this map so you could see where Guam is in relation to those who want us off the face of the earth. Not just Guam, but all Americans. This is what we wake up to every day. Our fishermen go out to fish, and they run into warships from China, North Korea, and Russia. And our planes are being zoomed in on all the time. Everything we say and do in Guam goes everywhere. We are known by our Department of Pentagon and Defense as the tip of the spear, if that gives you any indication. We currently house the largest Air Force base in the Pacific and the deepest port in the Pacific. Many, many fighter jets, nuclear subs, and aircraft carriers call our waters home. Our president continues to strengthen our military might in opposition to both sides of the aisle. When President Trump ordered our military to stand down, for the first time in decades, when President Obama ordered our military to stand down, President Trump, for the first time in decades, drew a line in the sand and told North Korea to back off. You don't know how huge that is for people that have been held in prisoner of war camps for 3 years. We don't want to see another war. As my governor stated to President Trump when the president called to say he had our backs, my governor said, "Americans on Guam sleep safer at night, sir, knowing you are at the helm." This should be all of our prayers. Now, within our federal government, there are over 52 layers of bureaucracy. 52 layers. Each layer is rife with segments of activists working together and independently of each other, all installed by prior administrations. They are career officials who have presided over their respective domains for literally decades. They work on your dime, on our dime, to influence chaos, resistance, and to undermine our basic constitutional process. Many of them are never Trumpers and have come to believe the end justifies the means. Liars, leakers, and lawlessness prevails while calling themselves patriots. President Trump has taken them on when no prior president has. He is uncloaking the vast corruption that has been allowed to exist and grow under countless administrations. You can remember back when we had 17 candidates on the Republican ticket? Well, Chris and I were blessed to be able to go to most of those debates, and you can just imagine the hotbed of emotions that played out at all the debates. The good old boys felt that Trump had not paid his dues and had not earned the right to even be a contender. They made it clear to everyone that every effort was to be made to discredit the outsider who had the audacity to think he could be president. Swamp critters attacked him from both sides of the aisle. He ran on cleaning them up. No one on either side of the aisle can afford to have someone there who cannot be bought, owned, or controlled. Yes. I can tell you that efforts were even made from within the Republican National Committee to have Trump expelled as a Republican candidate. At one point, I was forced to address the entire membership and remind them of our responsibility to our voters and our democratic process. I once again came face to face with the deep state during the 2016 Republican convention. Guam had been one of the first to put our president on the ballot, our candidate on the ballot. Because of this, there were those in our own party who targeted all the territories as a threat, and on the floor of the Republican National Convention called for a vote to expel the territories. All of us, 4.5 million Americans, they were just going to strip us of a voice. The yelling on the floor of the convention was absolutely deafening, but energetic. We fought back, and they failed. Thank you. Following President Trump's inauguration, he named Reince Priebus as his chief of staff. Interestingly enough, many installed White House staffers were Trump haters, spies, and leakers. You all watched as this played out in our nightly media. Now, the episodes I've just mentioned were the work of the deep state just from our side of the aisle. While meeting with Administrator Pruitt of the Environmental Protection Agency following President Trump's inauguration, I was sitting there while my governor was in deep conversation with the administrator, and the phone in the next office kept ringing and ringing and ringing, and no one would answer it, and there were people sitting everywhere. As a courtesy, I leaned forward to the administrator and said, "Sir, may I answer the phone and take a message for you?" He took a deep breath, looked at me, and he said, "Margaret, there are literally thousands of people in this building. Sadly enough, not one will answer a phone, file a piece of paper, or order me a business card. No one wants to go against the grain for fear they will be targeted next and risk losing their jobs." This scene was played out with every one of President Trump's nominees, cabinet nominees. The backroom scenes were horrendous. Shortly after their confirmations, rumors and claims from the rank and file would surface targeting them and their family members. Remember all the administrators? Remember all the administrations insert their own political appointees. Obama did it, Reagan did it, Bush did it. These people are rewarded for their help during the campaign. They may not always have the subject matter or the skills to run the job they're assigned to, but they are the president's eyes and ears in those respective agencies. We were in for another first. President Obama, realizing that our Clinton candidate was not going to win, in a last-ditch effort to compromise our president and his new administration, converted all of his staff, political appointees, to federal staff, putting them on permanent roles, guaranteed jobs for life. Okay? Preventing our president from putting in replacements. Do you see why it's taken so long to get confirmations, to get people in there? These folks are customarily asked to step down when a new administration comes in. This didn't happen. What it did do, it guaranteed more people in the deep state and activists to work on their behalf. Do you remember a few years back when activists in the IRS were targeting our conservative nonprofit groups under the direction of our old pal Lois Lerner? She played a central figure in the IRS Tea Party targeting scandal. She served as director of the IRS's Exempt Organizations Division. She attacked churches, she attacked pro-life groups, and anything out there that had any indication that it was conservative was targeted. How about the weaponizing of the FBI, CIA, intelligence agencies, as well as the Department of Justice, who together assisted Hillary and the DNC as they conspired and paid a foreign agent to manufacture a fake dossier, then allow it to be leaked in an effort to illegally destroy a Republican president and undermine the American people who voted for him. More recently, Secretary Shulkin of the VA released a book just this last week. It's entitled, "It Should Not Be This Hard to Serve Our Country." He describes just how toxic, these are his words, how toxic, chaotic, and subversive everything became just within the first 12 months that he served. It was impossible for any of them in the cabinet to get their work done. We are witnessing an outright coup, which continues to this day. The Dems ignored the illegal activity of the DNC, the Clinton camp, the Obama administration, and the ever-growing deep state. Those who hate Trump and the threat he represents to their power over all of us. In the latest Ukraine debate, the Democrats rallied and stated that Biden simply did not mean what he said. Yet disgracefully charge our president with impeachment for what he didn't say. You can't make this stuff up. Well, Adam Schiff can. But, and that's what happened. He made it up, false accusations, and now we're facing this. And they are not stipulating a law broken, and this is why we're following this. They are putting everyone on the stand to find anything they can coerce to be able to make a target. The House is demonstrating a total disregard for our democratic process. I hope you all realize that. What about Facebook and Google? Who is enabling them to continue to shadow all of our communications and stifle our voices? Chris, you've got the thing. This is from Cicero back in the Roman Empire. A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable till he is known and carries his blame openly, but the traitor moves amongst those within the gate freely, his sly whispers rustling through all the alleys, heard in the very halls of government itself. He rots the soul of a nation. He works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of the city. He infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to fear. The traitor is the plague. This is what we're up against, folks. Pardon?
We're up against traitors and treason.
Traitors and treason. You're right on. You are right on. Don't be confused. This is an all-out class war, or so they say, against our rights and our liberties. The educational and political elite feel they know best what is good for all of us. We are the undereducated, poor, smelly, irredeemable deplorables who eat at McDonald's, shop at Walmart, vote for Trump, all the while embracing our guns and Bible. Right on. We are. If this is not an endorsement of the party for the people, I don't know what is. My goodness, there are no words. I first registered with the Republican Party of Guam in 1961. I still have my badge. Granted, it was to be a pom-pom girl at the rallies, but everyone does do their share. Some do much more. I'm going to share with you the GOP leadership. Chris, can you go to the next one? There it is. Our leader of the Republican Party of the United States is Donald Trump, our president. His right hand is the leader of the RNC, and that is Chairwoman Ronna McDaniels. The RNC is made up of 168 members, 3 from every state, D.C., and the 5 territories. Among other things, these folks help develop policy, raise money, identify candidates, and host the Republican convention. Your California RNC representatives are Jessica Patterson, who's the chairman. And then we have Harmeet Dillon. You see her on TV, National Committee woman. Sean Steele, National Committee man. These folks are my counterparts, and they were voted in by your California GOP Central Committees. Slide 6, Chris, is California GOP leadership. Oh, you want to talk? Why are we Republicans? Our country is exceptional. Our Constitution should be honored, and our leaders should serve the people, not special interests. That is the whole premise of our party. Now, this is the California leadership. We are allowed 2 senators in Washington. None are Republican. We are allowed 53 out of 435 Congress seats. 53, we have the most because we have the largest population. Of that 53, 7 are Republican. State elective offices, executive offices, represent our governor, lieutenant governor, the cabinet members. So at this point in time, those 9 seats are all held by the Democrat Party. California State Senate, this is the upper house. We have 40 seats in the upper house. Shannon Grove is our minority leader there. Of the 40 seats, we hold 11. California State Assembly has 80 seats. Of those 80 seats, we hold 18. Marie Waldron is our minority leader. Total of 184 ruling bodies that we have options to try to take. 36 are Republican. That's less than 20%. I would like to think we could work harder and in time turn things around. The urgency, however, dear ones, is so dire and so real. We are 4.5 months away from our primary on March 3rd. We are 12 months away from our presidential election in November 2020. Unless we pick up additional seats here in California and aid President Trump, we will be settling for, and I'm going to take a deep breath, sanctuary statehood, late-term abortion, open immigration, magnet as caregiving state for illegals and criminals and repeat offenders, padding the courts, allow convicts to vote, allow illegal immigrants to vote, allow illegal immigrants free medical while our costs continue to rise, enable corrupt voter fraud, increase taxes, destroy brick and mortar businesses, kill jobs and employment, worsen home ownership crisis, charge more and restrict use for water, utilities, and even clean air, restrict our liberties and our speech, restrict gun ownership, restrict our health care options, allow tech industry to shadow our conversations and stifle our voices, open borders, putting our nation at risk, enable drug cartels and our neighborhoods at risk, enable drug cartels to poison our youth, maintain the highest homeless rate in the nation. We collect the highest tax rate in the nation and the highest taxes, and yet we have the highest homeless rate, we have the highest poverty rate. 1 out of every 5 Californians is in the poverty rate section. Maintain one of the lowest education rates in the nation. Forced to host poop and needle websites. Guaranteed income for everyone. Mandate what you can eat, how you can live, and what you can say. Eminent domain, just mentioned recently in the news, taking away your property and giving it to developers to provide affordable homes. Wow. We better get to work. This isn't even the whole list. Can we get a copy of that? Of course. Mm-hmm. Yes. And there's something else I'm going to be providing, and I'll explain that in just a second, dear. We are literally one man away from socialism. Our president is teaching us how to fight. We need to be familiar with our party's issues and support our president's positions. We must be better informed if we are to help inform others. To your question, I have prepared a flyer with talking points highlighting our president's, thank you, countless history-making achievements in spite of all the resistance. Jan has graciously placed this on our SVAWR website, and it's available for downloading. Please. On the homepage, under What's Hot. Share these with your friends, your family, co-workers, neighbors, congregations. Keep them informed. Remember I told you that the AAPI their demographic brought in the highest double-digit increase to the polls? We did it through their churches, through their pastors, through their ministers, through their priests. We need to let our congregations know. Knowledge is power. President Trump's tweets are an attempt to simply level the playing field. And yet Kamala Harris has during her debate petitioned to have President's Twitter account shut down. He needs our voices now more than ever. This one, you think it can't get any worse. Word on the streets in D.C. is that the Dems know they have a marginal lineup, and they are doing everything within their power to push Michelle to step up to the plate and save them. She has the highest ranking among them all. So keep that picture in mind. What can we do to take our party back, to take our state back, and to have more influence over our destinies? Chris, this was actually provided by a prior speaker here with SVARW, and we added a few things to it. What we all need to do is register to vote. Get voter, what is that? Guides out, and these are the things that people need to pick up. Vote biblical values. Oops, you've got to take that one out. Okay. Vote at the polls. We are told by Linda Payne that unless we vote at the polls, our votes can be compromised. And this is something that we need to physically go to and they're making it, Governor Newsom is making everything as hard for us to do as possible so that it would keep us from doing that. But we need to hold in there. That's for the California election in March. For the U.S. President's election, it's the same. And then share Trump accomplishments with everyone you know. The more people know, the better informed they are when they do go to the polls. Whew. In closing, I want to share a conversation I had with Justice Scalia in 2015. I think about it all the time. He said, any one of us can handle anybody for 4 years. We can deal with it. He said, but not only him, but 3 other justices were hanging on by their fingernails. We had 4 possible lifetime appointments up for grab that could affect and would affect all of our families for generations to come and throughout our nation. He stressed, above all, that none of us, and this blew me away because the man was born in Panama, and he was an American whose family was in the military. He was Italian. He had, I want to say, 10 children. And the man was, he went straight to heaven. But he stressed that none of us have the luxury of voting for who we like. That's not what it's about. We must vote for who we need. And I propose we do need President Trump. He has already filled 2 of these judiciary positions in the Supreme Court. And above all, he's willing to throw his hat in again for 4 years. Who does that? I mean, I'm surprised Melania hasn't, shot him in bed, I mean, seriously. Don't be. And yet, if you saw him when he announced that he was willing to throw his hat in for a second term, if you heard what he said, he touched on it. But I've heard him when he's been more adamant, and he slammed the counter. And that is, you need to be aware. Do not be confused. They're not after me. These hate mongers aren't after me. They're after you. And I am just in the way. Okay? As a commentator recently noted, we fall into 3 categories. There are the fighters. There are those who help the fighters, and there are those who sit back and do nothing. While we still have a choice, let's choose to keep America great. You folks in this room represent the fighters and the supporters, and believe you me, this is what's going to get the ground movement going. But what we need to do is to reach out to those who feel that they're in denial and they think everything's going to work out. Well, if you look at Guam, and I bring this back time and again, we are a microcosm of what's happening here. Only we see it right between the eyes because we're so small. Everything is so dispersed here that people don't see it, don't realize. My families in San Diego and Albuquerque are having to hire outside security to promise to respond to their home in case their alarm goes off, armed. Securities are coming armed, and that's because of all the threats from the border. And coupled with the fact that the local governments tell them, you can ring that alarm, you can set the house on fire, we don't know when we will show up. This is what's going to happen. And I'll tell you what's happening in California sets the pace for the rest of the nation. We need, and with all clarity, the Trump administration feels that, why are we going to put more money in California? We can't get anything there. We can prove them wrong. We can make a difference. And it's going to take every single one of us to do so, and to please to also respond to Jan's request. But I want to thank you. I want to say God bless all of you. And please keep our president in your prayers. God bless you. Thank you.
Take a few questions, won't you? Okay. Isn't Margaret great? And she's a member of SVARW, okay? All right. We have time for some questions. How it's going to work is you raise your hand and Jane will bring you the microphone. This is not statements, okay? A question, okay? Not a statement. All right? So here's the mic. You could have Jane. So you call on the people and Jane will bring the mic.
Oh, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, hon.
Thank you very much. I am concerned about those 30,000 emails of Hillary Clinton's. So do you think that she and the Obama administration were interacting with foreign governments?
Well, I think that after they arrest all of the soccer moms for helping their kids get into college, they may take a look at what Hillary has done. Our priorities are in the wrong place. Our Congress's priorities are in the wrong place. They are voting no against things that they fought to put in place years ago. This is strictly a resistance movement. This is strictly, we hate Trump more than we care for those who put their faith and trust in us. I would like to think that we have enough principled people there to be able to follow through and hold her feet to the fire. I would like to think that there are enough people that have the time and energy to do it. But again, it's getting people up and organized in order to keep that message out there, because they are attacking with the hopes that you will let all the rest of this slide. But I believe, first of all, I believe God's got his hand on our president's shoulder. I think God has his hand on all of us. And I think that our Lord will do what we need to do to get through this. Thank you.
Yes, I was concerned where we vote by absentee ballot or by mail. Is there a chance that Governor Newsom's could affect us having that vote registered, or do we have to go to a physical poll?
It's already happening. We have voter fraud in California, even though our local parties don't always recognize it. We had, I think, 9 counties where more people voted than were registered to vote. You know, we have dead people voting. We have, 19 people in the same household with the same last name voting, and they're not American citizens. I mean, when things like that happen, you have to believe that that deep state, you've got to remember that deep state is there throughout. It's in our election process, it's in our voting polls. If we aren't on top of it, and this is why it's so important that Linda Payne is doing such a great job going. She is a nonpartisan, working both sides, trying to secure that our vote matters and is counted. And her recommendation is at this point in time to please make every effort to vote in person. Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm sorry, hon.
So, thank you for staying in California after you live your whole life in the paradise, Guam.
Yes.
I don't know why. But my question is, given that we did have history of assassination of President Lincoln and JFK, and I assume it's probably from those people in the deep state back then, how worried or how would that keep you sleepless at night with that thought? That are they capable of doing the same thing now, or you think people are?
Well, I can tell you that I pray every morning and night. I reach out to everyone I can to keep our president. His family prays as well, and I do believe that God is in charge, and He is protecting this man right now, because even our RNC meetings, even though there's only 168 of us, there are oftentimes guests that are invited or media that are invited to our conventions and our meetings. And historically, they've been able to show up and register if they're willing to come all that distance to attend the meeting. Well, with the advent of President Trump, a month before, everything is cut off, because they don't have enough time for the Secret Service to vet everybody. And I can tell you that when Kim Jong-un challenged us in Guam, I would walk out of one meeting after another, at the RNC meetings, whether it be in Dallas or Florida or New York or Washington, and I was always approached by people from North Korea and South Korea areas wanting to know how to reach my governor. Well, you immediately turn that information over to your State Department and things like that, but that's because I know what to do. What about the people that may not know who to go to? These people are out there, they're trying to get to people that can get them a connection, a seat at the table, a phone call, or whatever. So yes, that is something that is a worry to all of us. And we should be, what did they say? If you see it, say something. And I think that's the big thing.
Margaret, I'm going to let you call on people and I'll follow you.
Oh, this young lady's had her hand up for such a...
Hi,
Hi,
I'm
dear.
Dawn, and it's a pleasure meeting you.
It's a pleasure, too. Thank you.
I have a question for you. How can we get the RNC National Committee involved in California to demand an investigation by the Department of Justice for the voter fraud that we absolutely know exists here?
Well, that's exactly what Linda Payne is doing. She is gathering information and going to all of the voter registration locations, and she is compiling records that they can then bring in and say, if we can't control our own, then we need the feds to step in and oversee. That is very true. And believe you me, that is like the top on their docket. And they are working, and she is so diligent. I don't know if you've heard her speak but my husband works with her on the voter election integrity committee, and these people meet regularly and they put a plan together and they are working to save your voice and your vote. Yes. The gentleman in the back raised his hand first. I'm sorry.
Red hat or no?
Red hat, yes, sir. Red hat, yes.
Oh, thank you for your presentation. I was curious what the Republican plan for ballot harvesting is, seeing as how we were taken advantage of in the last election by ballot harvesting, and what the plan also is for taking back California. But I mean, the ballot harvesting is a big issue, is why we lost so many seats in the last election.
We lost virtually all of those that were up for grabs in the last election. Voter harvesting, for those that may not know, the question was, what are we doing to counteract voter harvesting? Gavin Newsom, our governor, instigated a new policy and law for voting. Voter harvesting was allowed. In the past, if someone in your family could not make it to the polls, a grandmother, an ailing sister or something, you as a family member could take their vote in. Now, what our governor has done is he's eliminated the family requirement. Anyone can knock on your door and ask for your, well, if anyone can knock on your door and bring it to the polls, they may not even have to knock on your door to bring it to the polls. This is the truth of the matter. We were at a Tea Party meeting, Linda and all of us down in Bakersfield, and they had busloads of people with the Democrat Party out there in the fields registering every person picking fruit. This is something that we should be doing as well. But I can tell you that the RNC is addressing this. The RNC is training their people to basically, they're figuring if you can't beat them, you have to join them. So they're going to be going out with people door to door as well. Now, I have to tell you, Malcolm McGough, for those of you who heard Malcolm, was one of the representatives for the Trump campaign here in California. He did make it clear to us in one of his presentations that last year with something like, or the last election with something like 120,000 volunteers here in California, these people actually got Trump over the finish line, because when they realized that all of their knocking on doors, all of their trying to register people wasn't working fast enough, they took these people and put them on the phones to call in the very states that we were on the fence with. And we were able, California's callers were able to bring in 5 states to bring Trump over that finish line. So we are working. And thank you. Thank you for all of you who participated in that and will continue to volunteer, because you are our lifeblood. The gentleman in the back with the hat? Gene? Oh, Stephen.
My question is, what would we have to do in California to convince the president to bring a rally here? We feel that
Well-
we could sell out AT&T or Hollywood Bowl, and it would send a message in California that there are more of us than they think, and I think it would be outstanding. So what can we do as this group to maybe send a giant "Please come here" card, all signed by us,
I think,
to get Brad Parscale to have a rally here?
First of all, I can tell you our president hears. When we speak, he hears. And I do believe that, we've been working very closely with, was it Rush Limbaugh, trying to get Trump to make California one of those, battleground states. The problem that we encounter is a lot of times is security. Because the last time they held one large enough, we ended up having problems with where people were directed and putting people at risk. Now, Jan assures me that our chief of police is willing. He wants a do-over. He wants a do-over, yeah. And I think President Trump, left to his own devices, would do over. But I think that those who are given the responsibility of caring for him are making a difference. They're the ones who are holding people back from coming out to California. We're blessed that they're sending out Brad Parscale. They're sending out Katrina Pearson. We've had Judge Janine. A lot of people are coming out and speaking to the people. But again, if you look at those groups, they're smaller groups. We need to have, like you said, Stephen, a showing, because I think we can do it, and I think we can pull it off. And yes, sir, I will be sharing exactly what you mentioned. Thank you. God bless you. Yes, this young lady, she's coming right now, hon.
Hi, we're trying to approach pastors to let us do voter registration at the churches, and we're not meeting with any success. And I wondered, do you have any advice?
I don't know. It's up to the individual pastor whether they'll allow registration in the parishes. I do know that all the witches' covens across the country are going to have a seance to try to take our president down. And I do know that maybe these pastors would like to know that and do something to counter it. However, we have a responsibility to our parishioners, and maybe that's how we need to let them know. When we're talking about biblical values, we need to let our pastors, our ministers know that if not us, who? If we don't take a stand now, we're looking at untold just late-term abortion alone. Just drug trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking. These are things that we don't want to be responsible for. And we need to, President Trump's teaching us to fight. Well, we need to do that. We all need to step out of our comfort zone. And I used to say, I'm going to save that dress until I go to someplace special, or I'm going to do that. You know what? It's now. Our friends, our neighbors are dropping like flies. Mine are at my age. And I recognize that if I don't do it now, my voice won't be heard. And this is what each and every one of us needs to come to that grip, that we want to influence a better life. I can tell you that my pastor told me, Margaret, when you go to meet your maker, he's not going to say to you, how many times did you go to Mass, or how many times did you say the rosary, or how many times did you read the Bible? He's going to ask you, Margaret, did you do what was best for your family? Is your community better off for you having been there? Unless you can go to bed at night and think that you're not doing enough. I'm sorry. I'm out there. That's where we're at. Okay. One more question. Where? How about this young lady over here, hon?
Hi. You referred to AAIP a couple times.
Yes, American Asian Pacific Islanders.
Okay. And then also, watching the White House site on Facebook, I see the president signing things about, like lowering drug prices and
Yes.
prison reform and different things. But then apparently it needs to be brought up by Pelosi in the Congress to make it a bill to pass it or something? Do you know the process in that?
Well, normally any bill that's proposed, you would like to have bipartisan support. You know, we've complained for ages about presidents who've kind of taken it, become king and made their own executive decisions time after time. And our president is doing his best to adhere to the process, to ask for both sides to come to the aisle. But when when the other side says we can't keep him here, if he's not impeached, he will win. I mean, where's there any common ground? This is what he's up against. And unfortunately, in appearances, we have to have, and in process, we have to have both sides of the aisle come together on something that affects the nation. I can assure you that this man's on fast track. He's accomplished more than any other president in the 3 years that he's been there. There's a new sheriff in town, and he's not going to sit back and wait. In fact, I remember I was sitting in one of the departments, Department of Interior, and I said, we need to get this, and this done. And they said, Margaret, you talk too fast. And that's true, I do. But when you're only allowed a few minutes with someone, you've got to get in your words so you can get your ask out of the way. And the interesting thing was, they said, slow down, Margaret, you're talking too fast. You forget where you're at. You're in Washington, D.C. We move at a glacial pace here. Hey, I don't have time to work at a glacial pace. I had a friend of mine told me one time, she said, Margaret, what's this? And she put a yardstick on the desk. I said, it's a yardstick. She goes, no. She goes, that's the yardstick of life. And she goes, my darling. And she goes like this to the end. And she goes, you've got 3 inches left, sweetheart. What do you want to do with those 3 inches? Well, I'm down to 2.5 now. So, but this is what we're up against.
Margaret, there are so many more questions in this room that I'm aware of. There are bright people, there are passionate people, and I wonder if you might stay a little after and talk to people in the back so they can.
Of course,
reach
I
you.
will.
That would
I
be
will
great.
be here. Yes, thank you.
Okay, Margaret, you're amazing. Okay. Thank you. We're not quite finished yet, and I hope you will all take your seats, because there's one question, and I was going to reject this up front because it was slipped to me, but I have the same question. Margaret, every woman in this room, and maybe some of the men, want to know where to get a red elephant purse.
Can I tell them?
Sure.
Okay. I have to tell you that a good friend of mine had this made in Milan for me, and she dared me to wear it, so I wear it all the time. Hence, that's what got me in trouble. But I will find the source, and I will get back to us, and if I can, it'll go on our website. Thank you.
Okay.